As a landscaper, I've worked in many places, but none as eerie as the old Maplewood Cemetery. Nestled at the edge of our small town, it was a place of history, with graves dating back to the 1800s. Most days I found solace in the tranquility of the cemetery, the silence only broken by the rustle of leaves or the distant chirp of birds. That particular morning was no different. The sun had just begun to rise, casting long shadows between the tombstones. I was tasked with clearing out a section overgrown with weeds and ivy, an area that hadn't been tended to in years. As I worked, I uncovered a curious patch of land where the weeds grew unusually thick. Something about it felt off, but I dismissed the feeling, attributing it to the chill of the early hour. With my shovel, I began to dig, hoping to find the source of the dense vegetation. The soil was stubborn, resisting each thrust of my shovel. After what felt like an eternity, the tip of my shovel hit something hard. My heart skipped a beat. I knelt down, brushing away the dirt with my hands, revealing the corner of a weathered, unmarked stone. Curiosity got the better of me, and I continued to excavate, uncovering what seemed to be an old, forgotten grave. There were no markings, no inscriptions, just an ominous slab of stone. As I cleared away the last of the dirt, a cold gust of wind swept through the cemetery, sending a shiver down my spine. That night I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. My dreams were plagued with shadows and whispers, the sense of being watched. I woke up in a cold sweat, the memory of the unmarked grave vivid in my mind. Little did I know, my nightmares were only the beginning. The next day at work I felt a strange presence, a weight that seemed to press down on me. I shrugged it off, attributing it to my overactive imagination. But as the days passed, the feeling intensified. Tools went missing, strange noises echoed through the cemetery, and shadows moved where there should be none. One evening as I was packing up to leave, I saw it, a figure standing near the unmarked grave. At first I thought it was a trick of the light, but then it moved, gliding towards me with an unnatural grace. Panic surged through me and I stumbled back, tripping over a tombstone. The figure stopped, hovering over the grave, its form becoming clearer. It was a woman, her face pale and eyes hollow, dressed in tattered clothing from a bygone era. Her lips moved but no sound came out. Then, in a voice that seemed to echo from the depths of the earth, she spoke. "You disturbed my resting place, justice must be served." I felt a chill run through my veins. "Who are you?" I managed to stammer. She pointed to the unmarked grave. "I was wronged, buried without a name, without peace. You must find the truth." Desperation filled her eyes, and in that moment I understood. This spirit sought justice, an acknowledgement of the life that was stolen from her. Driven by a mix of fear and compassion, I vowed to uncover her story. Over the next few weeks, I delved into the town's archives, piecing together fragments of history. I learned of a young woman named Emily who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances in the late 1800s. Her body was never found, her story forgotten by time. With each discovery, the hauntings grew more intense. The spirit of Emily followed me, her presence a constant reminder of my promise. I became obsessed, driven to uncover the truth and give her the peace she deserved. Finally, I found the missing piece, a diary hidden in the attic of the town's oldest house, revealing the dark secrets of her fate. Emily had been murdered, her body hidden and buried in an unmarked grave by a man who sought to erase her existence. Armed with this knowledge, I returned to the cemetery, standing before her grave. "I know your story now, Emily," I whispered. "Justice will be served." That night I felt a shift, a sense of calm replacing the lingering dread. Emily's spirit appeared one last time, a faint smile on her lips. "Thank you," she whispered before fading into the night, finally at peace. The hauntings ceased, and the cemetery returned to its quiet tranquility. Emily's grave was marked with a proper headstone, her story no longer forgotten. But then one crisp autumn evening, as I was tidying up the last of the fallen leaves, I noticed something peculiar. A man, dressed in old-fashioned clothing, stood near Emily's grave. His back was to me, and for a moment I thought he might be another visitor paying respects. But as I approached, he turned to face me, and I was met with a pair of hollow, lifeless eyes. "You uncovered her grave," he said, his voice echoing with an unnatural resonance, "but the story is far from over." My heart pounded in my chest. "Who are you?" I asked, though deep down I already knew the answer. "I am the one who wronged her," he replied, a sinister smile spreading across his face. "And now, I seek my own form of justice." Before I could react, the ground beneath me began to tremble. The grave next to Emily split open, revealing a dark, gaping void. The man's form wavered and shifted, his smile growing wider as he was pulled into the darkness. "You thought you could lay her to rest," he called out, his voice echoing around me. "But some spirits are not so easily appeased." As he disappeared into the void, the ground sealed itself, leaving no trace of the disturbance. I stood there, shaken to my core, realizing that in my quest to uncover the truth, I had awakened a far darker force. Emily's story may have been told, but the cemetery held other secrets, and the past had a way of refusing to stay buried. From that day on, I worked with a newfound respect for the dead, knowing that sometimes uncovering the truth can have terrifying consequences.